Hey, welcome back. This is Anthony, and this is part two of a mini series where we're going to teach you how to input a calendar onto your website to allow people to come out, visitors to come out, schedule appointments to talk to you. So we're using a couple plugins. The first is Elementor. The second is Simply Schedule Appointments, and that's really what allows this to work. And all of this is baked on top of WordPress. So what we're doing, and if you can see, if I click this button, it's going to pop up the calendar. So that is the focus here today. We are creating a plugin that's going to allow for those extra features to happen, because straight out of the box, if you put this calendar on your page, it's just going to be there. There's not going to be any options to expand or appear or disappear or anything like that. So the custom plugin that we're building from scratch is already halfway done. It's actually more than halfway. And we're going to finish it out in this video. So if you missed the first half, go back, watch the first video. And we left off with the JavaScript. And we're following along on my website as well. So if you go to brunstar.com, there's a link in the description, and you'll find all the code there as well. So we're on step 3, creating the CSS file. And we just finished up the JavaScript file from the last video. And if I open up a new file and paste in the code from here, this is what it'll look like. So just paste this into a new file, give it this title here, simply scheduleappointments.css, and you should be home free. Save the file, and then we'll move on. Now we're actually going to go and make the page. Excuse me. So the page itself, if you just add a new page into the back end of your WordPress site, if you have Elementor installed, which you should, you'll click Edit with Elementor. And actually, let's do this first. Instead of using the default template, let's do the Elementor canvas, because that's going to allow us to basically have a blank canvas. We're not going to have any headers, no footers, no nothing. It'll be a clean screen. So let's do that. Now I'm loading up the page, and it should just be a blank white screen with my options on the left to drop different widgets. So to begin with, as you can see, there's no menu. You'll probably want to just use a default template or something on yours, because they typically come with menus. But we'll just build one by scratch really quick. So what I just did is I added a new row that was single column. And over here, I'm going to say menu, because I'm going to create my own really quick. Now let's just look at these different options. So you can see this first one here is navigation menu with the WordPress logo there. And if I select a menu, it's going to look like that. So it's pretty basic. There's no CSS applied. And what you'll want to do is just apply some CSS to this to make it look nicer. There's also other plugins available out there that will accomplish the same task without the extra work of CSS making it look nice. So I've actually got another plugin here installed. It's called Header Footer Blocks. So if you go out and search Header Footer Blocks, that's a pretty good one. And so I'm going to type out nav menu again. And the nav menu that Header Footer Blocks has here is called navigation menu, and in the top right it has HFB. So we'll drop that in there. And you can see it out of the box has some nice little CSS applied. And so what I can do is just switch out the menu for whatever one I want. And we'll delete this here because we're not going to use it. And that's pretty much it for the menu itself. You can go through and mess with the different features of this. You can have drop down features if you want, change the colors, styles, borders, whatever you want. You can change the icon size, you name it. Just play around with this, but that's not really the focus of the video. So moving on to, I guess we'll toss in another column. Let's do another single column. And you'll notice that each one of these rows has 3 different parts to it. There's the section itself, so you can see if I select that, I've got the section selector. There's the column selector, which is here. And then there's the actual widget selector, which once I drop something in there, it'll be the widget. So if you click that plus sign, your list of widgets will come up. And I'm going to search for, let's do video. Actually, there's video right there. So I'm going to drop in a new video. And this video, as you can see, is just the placeholder, and it takes up the entire screen. So let's start with the section itself. Now, because I have the canvas, it's by default just going to fill up the entire screen. But what we're going to do, just it's kind of a habit for me, is I select full width for the width to extend to the outside of the screen. And columns gaps doesn't matter, there's only one column, and that's pretty much it there. So the second thing is we're going to look at the column itself, and I can bring this video in a few different ways using padding and margins and things like that. So I think what I'll do is, from the column standpoint, since the video is on the inside of that, if I mess with the padding, since padding is on the inside, that should bring the video in so that I can then apply, say, a background or something like that, or just make the video smaller. That's one way to do it. I can also mess with the margins and then push the outside of it in, and so that's an option too. So let's just do, let's do the margins. So we'll look at the column, we'll go to the advanced portion, and we'll give it some margins here. So that's going to shrink our video, make it so that we can apply a background behind it, play around with it a little bit. Actually, let's move the video up a little bit because you can see that it's a little far away from the menu itself. So the top margin, I'm just going to bring that down some, so that'll bring our video up, right? And now what I can do is I can go to the section level and I can put a background color, I can put a background picture. Let's just play around and see what our options are. So if I go to style, background, I can do classic, I can do color. Let's do a color. Let's do red. So there's a background. I guess there's a nice little background. I can do a gradient. There's an option. So you can see there's a nice little gradient there. You can choose your different colors that you want. If you're more of a blue type person, you can do your blues. You can do your grays, whatever, if you're more of a gray type. And as I look at this now, I kind of want to bring that margin on the section back to the way it was, or closer to the way it was on the section level itself here. So what do we have selected? The column. Yeah, so it was the column. So let's bring that margin a little bit so that it's a little bit more, yeah, that's better. So we'll do 58, and then let's just bring the bottom back to 58 as well. So there you go. Now it's a little bit more symmetrical. It's kind of nice. So now we've got the background, we've got the video on top. So if I go to the video itself, I can also apply some features to this, which is kind of nice. So if I go over to the style section, you can see that there really isn't a whole lot going on here. You can, CSS filters, great for the video itself. But really where we're going to have some fun is in the advanced section. So we're not really going to mess with margins or anything. We've already done that. But what I can do is look at the border. And so the border type, there's no border, which is fine. But I want to apply a radius. So look at the corners here. I just made the radius curved, which is a nice effect. And I can also give it a box shadow. So if I do that, by default, it kind of gives me a little bit of a shadow. I can make it a little bit more blurry. I can add, make the spread a little bit bigger so that it kind of comes out. You see there? It's a nice little video on the front page. And then below that, we're going to add a new row. And this is where we're going to add our calendar. And this is really where we're focusing here. So let's add the calendar. We'll add actually let's not do one column, let's do two columns. So we'll do two columns where the right is smaller than the left. And we're going to put a couple things here. On the left side, let's just start with a heading, and then we'll add in another one. Let's do some text. Let's do text, yeah. So we'll drop that right below the heading. And then over to the right here, we're going to put in our button. So this is the button we're going to click, and we'll clean this up a little bit. So the button itself, let's make the button, let's see, on the column itself, if I want to vertically align that, I should be able to just put that in the middle. And then on the button itself, I should be able to center that. Yeah, that's better. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some padding that will, again, allow me to kind of put a background around it. So let's play around with this and see how this works out. So we've got padding here in all different directions. Let's look at the column here. Yeah, let's do that. So now I should be able to go through, give it a background color. And so background, let's do let's do this text color, whatever. There you go. So, kind of lame, but you know, doesn't really matter, I guess. Let's do this lighter color. Now the button itself, you can also do the same thing with that we did with the video, as far as adding the borders, having a box shadow, so we can do the box shadow around it. So you can see there's the box shadow that went around there. And let's see what we have selected here. Yeah, so under style, I can give that a border as well, a radius, I should say. So you can see the button has a radius. The box now has the shadow, and let me give this a shadow as well. So there's a little bit of a shadow. Let's make it inset. Let's see if we can do box shadow, padding. Yeah, so under the box shadow, we should be able to, instead of do outline, do inset, and that kind of changes that a little bit, you see. So now our shadow's on the inside instead of the out, and that's pretty good. So now over here on the left, let's give this a little bit of padding, or margins as well. So let's start with the column itself, and what we'll do is in the column, let's give that some padding. So let's do that. There we go. So that's nice. All right, so now there's only a couple of steps left. Now the first one that we have to do is actually, let's move on to adding it to your page, adding the scheduler itself to your page. So the first thing is to add shortcode into your page. So we're going to add a new row just above here, and then add a section. And then for here, let's go ahead and do search widget shortcode. So this is where we have our shortcode declaration in this little box. So what we did is ours was called this SSA booking type equals consultation phone call. If we go back to our code to confirm that, we've got this here where we're confirming that type matches. So whatever your type is, then it should match. Otherwise, just get rid of this section if you don't care. If you want it to be for all of them, then just do it that way. So I'm going to do shortcode is going to be SSA booking type equals consultation phone call. And then there it is. It just showed up automatically, which is pretty cool. So from there, we'll move on to the next part, which says that we're going to add the animate class that we created, and we're going to apply that to the column. So the column itself is this selector here. We go into advanced and we go to the classes, and we're going to say animate. So that's going to allow us to, it's going to apply that class to it so that once we want to make the features run, it'll work. From there, we move on to the section, and we will apply the modal ID to the modal so that once we're clicking outside of it, it'll be able to appear and disappear and things like that. So here it says to do modal scheduler. So we'll say modal scheduler. The class itself is modal. So if I do modal, you see it disappeared because by default it's gone. So for now, let's just delete that L because right now it's not going to recognize the moda class. But literally the moment that I click L, it's going to disappear, and this is going to work because I already have the files uploaded to my site and the plugin activated. But we'll show you a little bit more about how the files need to be moved over and everything in a second. But for now, let's just continue on to the next step, which is to, it says add the button. So we've already added the button, but what we haven't done is we have not added an ID to the button. So the ID itself, button schedule demo, is the same name that we gave inside the JavaScript file. And as long as it matches, it should work. So what we'll do is we'll go down to the button and make sure that here we have button schedule demo. And once that's in there, and once it's good to go, the only thing left is to go back to the section here and add the L, and now it's gone. So this should work for me, and I'll give it a try here in a second, but make sure that you take all of your files and you put them onto your website, and the locations are listed here. So under the root of your WordPress instance, you're going to have the WP content folder and then a plugins folder under that. And then inside of that folder, you're going to have a bunch of folders, one per plugin that you already have installed. Now you're going to install your own custom plugin that we created today. And that custom plugin is called SSA Popup. And so that's where you're going to create a directory called SSA Popup. You're going to put your 3 files out there. One is your CSS, one is your JS, and one is your PHP that we created before. And once that is out there, you'll just go and you'll activate it through your plugins activation screen. So that's pretty much it. So let's preview this just to see if it works. So you can see we've got a nice little effect there, kind of a generic menu. And then down at the bottom here, I click and there it is. So you can mess around with the width on this thing too so that it's not so wide. You can make it, and in fact, I'll show you how to do that right now. That's not too difficult. Now that it's hidden, I have to get it back. And the way to get it back is if I right click and I say Navigator, and I go into, let's see, where is the shortcode? Is there. There's this section. So I'm going to say, I'm going to take off part of this class so that I can see it again. And now you can see that the calendar took up the entire column. So that's why it just opened up so big. So kind of like we did up here where we mess with margins and padding, let's just play around with that again to see what we can get, how we can accomplish what we're shooting for. So on the section, which is the outside, I can apply padding to that, which will start to push things in. Let's give that a try first. Yeah, we'll give that a try. So padding here. So you can see it's making it smaller. We don't really need the padding on the top and the bottom. I mean, it's not going to do us any good. But, so I guess I'll just take that off. It's not going to hurt either, to be honest with you. So let's make this a little bit, we'll do 180. Yeah, we'll do 180 on each side. So now if I preview this, it should look more like this, right? So you can play around with this to make it look how you want. And so there's, it's a little bit smaller, I guess. But yeah, mess around with that. And again, once we apply this L class to it and then it'll disappear, we can start testing the features again. So let's click here. And then it pops up. A little smaller, not much, but that's kind of it. Yeah. Any questions? If anybody has questions, post them below. You can also go to my site and you can post a comment down at the bottom, and I'll probably answer a little bit more quickly if you go out there and ask them, because I'll be checking that a little bit more. But yeah, if you have any comments, questions, put them there, and I will be happy to make another video about it. All right, have a good one. Bye.